It's day 5 of the 12 days of Claudemas. This is a project in which we're trying to build tools or micro applications every day for 12 days using vibe coding and nothing but Claude code. Now, to have a look at where we're up to in our quest progress, we started day 1 with building a little harness in which to put all our tools and our applications. After that, we went on to brain-related objects. So the first one was the primary brain, which was related to just talking to chatbots. And then the secondary brain was related to talking to memory. So what that means is that we've got the harness. It has concepts like configuration and settings. After that, we went to the brain. And if we had a little bit of a conversation of what do I have available for me in the Kybernetes brain, and we just let this conversation go through on the chatbot, while the memory that we're talking to right now, Kybernetes, is a graph memory store, and we're using it externally to get information that's in that store. We can see that information in the graph brain that is Kybernetes right here. Then on day 4, what we did was we moved into image generation, where we used 2 different routers for image and video models. So we got FAL AI and we got Kai AI, and then we were able to use it with different models. But the idea of the FlyGen system that we're putting together is ultimately to go down to storytelling, which I hope to get to on day 11. But at the moment, we're on day 5. So day 5 is going to be about text-to-speech, and what we're going to use for that is ElevenLabs. So now that we know what we're up to, let's come up with a little bit of a plan of action, and we'll jump on down to the Claude terminal where I've just started a brand new Claude code, and I've got a little bit of progress on where we're at, and we'll figure out what we're doing today. I think the way we'll go about it today is that we'll go into a planning phase. What I'll do is I'll use a voice agent, meaning I'll talk into the microphone, and whatever I say will go directly into Claude code. What we want to do is maybe create some sort of story narrative, something short. And with that story narrative being created, we want to split it up into what are called beats. These are visual sections that we can define. And with that, we could maybe create an image at the beginning, an image in the middle, and an image at the end. And the reason this would be interesting is that tomorrow when we do the video creation, we could use those images and the narration to make a little movie. So let's start talking to Claude Code. We're down in the terminal and we're going to say, today, what we're going to do is create some sort of tool related to ElevenLabs. The way we're going to do that is to create a tiny story. This little story will be narrated by ElevenLabs. And I'm just letting this come through, and I'm pressing Shift-Enter twice because I want to start the next sentence. The story that we're creating today will be the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. What you need to notice about this story that I just gave you is that it is only 2 beats in length. And with that, I also want you to develop 3 visual concepts. The first one will be the beginning of the scene. The second one will be the middle between the 2 beats. And the third one will be the end of the scene. You are allowed to creatively modify the story slightly, so long as it remains as 2 beats. You will then go into visual development. So the first thing that you will do is come up with a comic style that's easy to draw, very colorful, and something that we could use consistently in any of the images that we generate. Then I want you to come up with just image ideas for the 3 different images we need to create. Once you've come up with the ideas, I want you to develop 2 distinct prompts that are slightly different from each other to give us variation for each of the 3 image ideas, and make sure that each of the image prompts use the style of comics that you've gone with. It's very important that when you create the image prompts, that the second one is a continuation of the first one from a visual perspective, and that the third one is a continuation of the second one from a visual perspective, because what we're going to use is image-to-image video generation models, and it's important that the scenes make sense. Can you now develop a multi-part plan of which in part of it we will be using ElevenLabs, and we'll deal with that when we do the requirements document. but so long as everything's in the plan, I'll be happy. So what I've really been doing with that particular plan is getting ready for a few different video concepts. So we know we can do images. We did that yesterday. We're in the middle of doing the ElevenLabs, which is the text-to-speech, but tomorrow we want to create some sort of video stuff. So if we can bring these three concepts together with a story and then maybe later on do the music, then it means when we get to day 11, the idea of doing a story becomes really easy. Now all we have to do is go back to the terminal and we can press enter and see what it comes up with. So we have our creative brief developed for day 5. This is excellent, and it's the fox and the lazy dog as a mini story. So the original is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, but it's developed it into 2 different beats. A quick brown fox discovers a lazy hound dozing beneath an old oak tree, and with one graceful leap, the fox soars over the sleeping dog and it disappears into a golden meadow. With that, we have the full script narrative that will go over to ElevenLabs. We have this little plan that we've created. What we can do is just cherry pick the area we need for the ElevenLabs and we'll build a requirements document. So it should be as simple as going back to our conversation, and we'll use the PO, so the product owners, developed in such a way that it knows how to write functional requirement specs. And the interesting thing is, as soon as the PO loaded, it just started building a functional requirement spec. Something we should probably tell it, can you make sure that you use an API key that I already have in the environment? I'll let that come through, and I'm just going to paste in the ElevenLabs API key. So it's written a requirements document for us. I'm not paying too much attention to what's going on in there. We will look at it in a moment. What we'll do is we'll go over to a new version of Claude and we'll go straight into our developer agent and ask him to implement FR11. Now, I don't know whether it's going to come up with a visual interface for us, but we can go talk about what it could do by coming back to our FlyGen application. So yesterday we were working on the images, and this is the sort of stuff we're going to need before we can do our video generation. But today we're working on the text-to-speech. At the moment, there's nothing there. But what I'm hoping we could at least get done by the end of this session is some sort of audio player that could just play the narration back to us. It looks like it's finished some coding. I'm not sure what it's done. What we'll do is we'll pop over to a new window, and I'm just going to start the server. Let's see if it starts first. So we've got our server kicking off. And look at that, it's saying that ElevenLabs is configured down the bottom, so this is a good thing. We'll just come over to our website. It's saying it's connected, and we'll click on the TTS, see what comes up. And that's looking really promising. So we've got some sort of voices, and we've got a sentence. Let's just click on that and generate the audio. How perfect is this? We've got a play button, but we've also got a download. Let's see if it works.
Brown fox discovers a lazy hound dozing beneath an old oak tree. With one graceful leap, the fox soars over the sleeping dog and disappears into the golden meadow.
How cool is that? And we can do a download on it. So we could even use that audio exactly how it is tomorrow when we do the video. So we can almost call this closed off, but what we'll do one more time is we'll use the download button, we'll bring it down, and that's just gone into my downloads directory. We'll go back to the terminal and we'll just have one little question. If I wanted to put the MP3 files somewhere so that we can serve them more readily in our application tomorrow, where would you put it? For the following narration, how would you rename this file? What I'll do is I'll just press Shift Enter twice, and I'll put in the original file, which is in the downloads directory. The other thing I'll do is just put in the narration as well. It should be able to figure out that the narration is what we want to develop a file name around. It knows where the original is. I have no idea where it's going to put it, probably in a server directory, and hopefully named correctly. This is perfect. So we've got audio. We'll go into the audio directory, and it's come up with a name. We can just press Tab, and hopefully we will now have this new structure in place. So it looks like it's going to think of it as assets with the Fox story. And so anything we do for the Fox story would all be in one location. While we're waiting on that, I'm just going to make sure that I've got a Visual Studio open, and I do, and that will allow us to go and have a look at this assets directory. There's our asset, and let's see what happens if we play it. 9 seconds long.
A quick brown fox.
Perfect. That's the one we wanted. So one more thing just to close things off. We'd better say, can you create a handover conversation for the product owner? We'd better let the product owner know what we've done, especially this new section. That way he can document it correctly. So then when we're doing our movies or whatever, we know where all the files are going to get stored. Now that's a pretty extensive document that we're bringing through. So I think we can just go down to the bottom. We'll copy that and we'll just paste it in and make sure that the backlog or the change log or even just the story itself gets updated. And that's exactly what's happening. The backlog and the change log are being read right now. There's some sort of statuses and we can just update it. We're also updating the Claude MD. This is the system prompt for this particular application. Whenever we open up a new Claude instance in this folder, and we can see the folder just here, it will have whatever information was in that Claude MD available. You see right here that the change log is updating. And at the very end of this, we'll do a commit so that we can make sure that the code is up in the repository. You'll be able to access everything from the repository anyway. We'll just do a commit. So it's just adding the files and creating the commit message right here. It's doing a git status. It's letting us know that we've probably got to do a push. There's the commit message that it's done. So we'll just run the git push ourselves. Then I run a little alias called GHB, but let's run a witch on it so that we can see what it is. And it's just aliased to GitHub browse. You can see it's just opening our repository in the browser. So we can see it right here. And it says day 5, ElevenLabs text-to-speech has been added 1 minute ago. By the way, if you ever want to get any of the code, you can just go over to this repository. I usually like to use the GitHub CLI to do a GitHub repo clone, and you can bring the information down to your system. So that brings us to the end of day 5. So that's now implemented. Tomorrow we're going to work on the video system. Now, if you're ever interested in working with me, you may want to join my community. There should be a link in the description. Now, if you want to follow anything else that I'm doing on vibe coding, context engineering, or this 12 days of Claudemas, then
please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
What he said. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Happy Dave.